This is EP3, Speaking the Truth in Love, and I just come on for a few minutes to give you guys a word of encouragement. If you like this video and want more content like it, like, subscribe, and drop a comment. Today, I want to talk about relationship between men and women. And specifically, no shade to anybody else, but specifically between black men and black women. And I want to address some things before I go into talking about in the next videos that I'm gonna do. So I want to first start by saying I am not one of those people who feel like you have to date or you have to marry within your race. However, I was that person some years ago, but because I have friends and I see how happy they are in their relationships, and because I understand as a person of faith, as a Christian, we really have to be more concerned about our relationship with God versus our color. So I want to put that out there first. However, I want to address some things about, I feel like for the last 15, 20 years, there's been like this war between black men and black women. And I, for one, I was married for 28 years to a black man. He was a good man. Was he a perfect man? No, he was not a perfect man, but he was a good black man. He made his fair share in his youth of mistakes. But all in all, he just was a good person. He was a good person. He was the kind of person that whether he knew you or not, if you asked him for something, if he had it, he was going to give it to you. He was the kind of person that could help a woman and not expect her to go to bed with him. He was just a good person. Now, I know my experience may be different from a lot of other women's experiences, but this is the thing. The problems that we're having in the black community were not all, how do I want to say this? They were not all us. It was not all our doing. And when I mean us, I mean the black community, the black people as a whole. And why do I say this? When you go back and you study history, and you go back and you really study things as they are and not as you want them to be, regardless of what race you come from, you will understand that, yes, we've always had a certain amount of issues because we're humans. However, black families stayed together. Black families were gaining wealth. So when you roll it all the way back to slavery, because in America, we don't want to talk about slavery, and I'm not really one of those people that like to give folks excuses for why they can't make it in life. That's not me. But we have to look at things as they are, and we have to face the truth as it is, because until we face the truth as it is, we cannot move forward, right? So when you go back to slavery, the first thing that causes us problems in our community is the fact that the black man did not have control over his own body, first of all. So if a person doesn't have control over their own body as a man, then how can he have control over his own household? How can he have the real He can have the love of his woman, but how does he really have the respect of his woman? So, and I know this is not going to be a popular subject, but this is just factual. So the first divide in the family was never that the fact that the black woman didn't love her husband or love the black man, because the black woman has always loved the black man. But the problem come in when you're treated as chattel. When you're treated as chattel, the man is treated as chattel. Somebody could just come take his wife, come take his children, and sell them whenever they get ready. You already have a problem right there, right? So, okay. So that was a problem all the way up until slavery was abolished, right? The first thing the man tried to do is gather his family back together, which is what family reunions, our actual family reunions that we do now are based on. That's when they were started, after slavery. They were actually trying to locate their wives that were sold, locate their children that were sold. And of course, some of the wives were trying to locate their husband and their children. So people were trying to locate each other after slavery. So the ones that were able to reunite, and the ones that were actually kind of together as a couple, they formed these family bonds, right? Right after slavery, they worked things out, they formed the bond. And now the husband and the wife, they're working together like a husband and wife should. The family is struggling to a degree, but eventually a lot of families actually start gaining wealth, because these were not ignorant people in the sense of they couldn't learn. They start learning things. They start developing things. They got in political life, right? And they made life better for themselves. Separate from the white people, but they made life better for themselves. So, yes, then came Jim Crow, the Jim Crow laws. But even during the Jim Crow laws, if you look at it the way it was, the black family was striving. They were getting stronger and stronger. The black community was getting stronger and stronger, right? Building their own cities, living in communities with just black people. They had, across America, they had their own bus stations, their own banks. You can go Google all this stuff. I'm not going to give you, you can go Google all this stuff. Even in Mississippi, even in the deep South, the black people, they had their own banks, they had their own bus stations, own laundromats. Eventually, they had their own movie theaters. The black community was thriving. Their own stores, their own farmers markets. They had all this stuff. The actual money was going through the black neighborhood, the black community, 7 times before it went out into the rest of America. Living separate, right? And this is because the black family was strong. So what do they do? What do they do? After we got our rights, after we got civil rights, and we started being able to get help from the government and all those subsidies and all those things. So they come in and they basically take the man out of the house, the father. the leader out of the house. That's what they did. Go back and look at it. So in order for the woman to get any help, this is what the rules were. I'm not making this stuff up. This is what the rules were. You couldn't have a man that helped you. So therefore, you had to have children, because this help wasn't given to a single woman that didn't have children. This was if you were a woman and you had 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 children, however many children you had. In order to get any kind of help from the government, you had to either lie and say that your husband left you, or your boyfriend or whatever it was left you, deserted you, or that had to be true. And then you couldn't go get a stepfather, because in order to get those subsidies, the money, the food stamps, the cheap rent, in order to get all those things, you had to become a single parent. So that was the first thing to bring down the black community. Okay, so the second thing was they did the war on drugs. Hoover. So you know what they did? Every evening they had these folks being arrested. The majority of these folks, now it was some Caucasians, but most of them were like hippies, and they didn't look at them as like regular white people. Go back and look at history. Go back and study. I'm not making this stuff up. But what they did was every evening, back in the day, back in the 70s, in the 60s, in the 70s, in the 80s, and even the 90s, we had news come on at 5 o'clock and at 9 o'clock. That's in Central Time. Probably different. It was a different time, like I think 10 o'clock and 6 o'clock in certain parts of America. But you had, at any rate, you had the news coming on, your local news coming on 2 times a day. And every day they showed people, black men getting arrested for drugs, either drug possession or selling drugs, which put in the minds of the black woman and the rest of America that all black men wanted to do was get high and abandon their babies. Make babies, leave their babies, get high. So that was the tearing down of the black family. And so my thing is, we need to stop fighting each other. Stop fighting each other. The women need to stop competing with the man, because number one, you can't compete with a man. That's number one. If you are involved with a man that's cheating and doing all this different stuff for whatever reason that he's doing it, you can't compete with him. You can only have so many babies, because you got to carry that baby for 9 months. You got to carry that baby for 9 months. And you might have twins. You can have triplets. You can have quadruplets. But at any rate, you got to carry those babies for 9 months in order for them to be healthy. At least 6 months for them to be viable, for them to really be healthy. Right? Am I right? Okay. While you doing that, that man can get 1,000 women pregnant if they wouldn't have lay down with him. So number one, you cannot compete with. That is some feminist bullcrap that we've adopted as a whole, that we shouldn't have never adopted. Because their families are still together. No matter how much marching they talking about, they need equal rights and they want to have equal pay and they can do this and they can do that. Their families are still together. Yours is not. And whether we want to believe it as women or whether we don't want to believe it as women, whether we do or we don't, the fact of the matter, every child needs their father. Every child needs their father. And that is why we're having such a hard time. Now, don't get me wrong. I am not saying that there's not any women that are raising great children. There are. There are women who's raising great children. But those same great children have a lot of insecurities because they did not have their father in the household with them. Because they feel rejected. And this was done purposely. It was done to the black community purposely. So this thing about all black men being low down ain't no good, that is not true. This thing about all black women, all they want to do is argue, fuss, and fight. They don't want to submit to no man. All that crap, that's not true. That is not true. We need to stop putting each other in groups, letting everybody think, all black women are one type of way, all black men are one type of way. That is not true. The facts are, there are good people in every race, and there are bad people. There are people that do bad things in every race. Regardless of what they look like, regardless of how good looking they are, or how unattractive you may think they are, there are good and bad people. And the fact is, we all are capable of sin, and so therefore that's why we need a savior. Our biggest problem is we as a black race, a black people, and then that race, I'm going to do another video about that, because there ain't no such thing as race. There's no such thing as race. But we as black people, we need to stop fighting each other, and we need to really find a common ground, because at the end of the day, nobody else experienced what we experienced. Nobody else has experienced exactly what we have experienced. Has other groups of people have hard times? Yes. Yes, other groups of people have had hard times. But the difference is their hard times are always acknowledged. Ours are not. Every time we think we have moved in the right direction, there's somebody that comes to kick us down. So let's stop kicking each other down and let's start working together. If you can't make it as a couple, let's still learn how to work together enough to raise some fantastic people. Look, we are some talented, intelligent people, good-looking people. People want to be like us. We have invented things. We have improved on things. We have wrote some of the best literature there is out there. We've made some of the best, we've made some bad music, but we've made some of the best music as well. Our pastors and leaders, as flawed as they may be at times, guess what they've done? They have preached some of the best sermons that have ever been preached. Listen, we have got to stop hounding on our mistakes, our misfortunes, and come together and think about and praise each other for the good that we've done in America. We've done some great things in America and around the world. And that's just a fact. But the thing is, our biggest problem is we've got to learn how to work together as a family again. And there's a lot of black families that's starting it. But we've got to really go back and examine what a family is supposed to look like. And I'm not just talking about the mama, the daddy, and the children. I'm talking about a family. I'm talking about your siblings. I'm talking about your cousins, your aunt. Okay, we all got some dysfunction. But every race have dysfunction. It's not just us. Why do we have to allow ourselves, how do I want to say, why do we have to bash each other so much? Why do we have to bash each other so much? There's some good black men out here. And yes, some of them are married to white women. And yes, some of them are married to different types of women. But you got to realize that none of us are 100% black. That's just the way it is. So that's one of the reasons why I say I really don't have a problem with who somebody marry. As far as black, white, Asian, and all that stuff, I don't have a problem with that. But what I have a problem with is when you marry somebody as a black person, when you marry somebody outside your race, don't, whether you're a male or a female, because I've heard females do it and I've heard males do it, don't bash the other black people. That person just happened to be the person that you love. Okay? That don't mean that they're better than, if you're a black woman married to a white man, that don't mean that a white man is better than all the black men. That just means that particular white man love you, hopefully, and you love him, hopefully. That's what that means. And hopefully that relationship, especially if it's a marriage, and that marriage produces children, I pray that it lasts a lifetime like it should. But to say that there was no black man on this world, in this whole world, in the whole United States, or like I said, in the whole world, that would have treated you right, that's not true. That is not true. And the same for that black man. Okay, you like what you like, and I don't have a problem with that. But to say that there's no black woman that would have stood by you through thick and thin, that's not true. Because the one thing I know about a black woman is if she loves somebody, if a black woman really loves you, now maybe you've been involved with black women that didn't love you, but when a black woman loves you, she sticks by you through thick and thin, and sometimes to her own detriment. And the fact of the matter is, we all know that is true. So to say that, yes, she's going to tell you the truth. And her way of telling you the truth, you might not like it, but sometimes the truth hurts. If you're one of those people, if you happen to be a person that don't want to work, and I'm not talking about somebody who is trying to start up a business, who is trying to do something different from the rest of their family and they're misunderstood. That's one thing. But I'm talking about somebody who just don't want to do nothing with their life but make a bunch of babies. Nobody want to be involved with that. Nobody want to be involved with that. And when I mean make a bunch of babies, I ain't talking about just making a bunch of babies in your marriage. I'm talking about making a bunch of babies with everybody. So that's be realistic when we're discussing relationships. Because there are some very good people Now, I will say this. I will say this. And when I will say this, and this is just a piece of advice. Okay. I'm a college educated woman. I'm a leader in my on my job. But, and I want to make this clear, but when my husband was living, he was the head of the household. It don't matter who made more money, who made less. Because when we started out, he made more money. Because I didn't have anything. I mean, to be honest, I didn't really have anything. I mean, I was working at a little garment factory. I wasn't making that much money, and I was really young when we got together. So I didn't have a whole lot. But, you know, like I said, after a period of time, with his encouragement, I got in management. I became a foreman, which is the first frontline manager in my job. And honestly, I started making more money than him. But we never talked about that. That was never an issue. And it should not. And I say that because it should not be an issue. Now, I will say this. He was making pretty good money. I ain't gonna lie. He was making pretty good money, but ever since I've known him, he made good money. He made enough money that I probably could have just been at home. But that wasn't an agreement that we made. And that was not what I wanted. So one of the things that I think that's another problem with couples of all races, this is a just couple thing. You're too busy thinking about what works in somebody else's house and it should work in your house. No, it don't work like that. What worked in our household may not work in your household. You all may want one of y'all to stay home all day with the children, and the other one work. And one income may be enough for y'all to have the life that you want. There's nothing wrong with that. That's a beautiful thing. That's a beautiful thing. Working out your own marriage, working out your own relationship, and not comparing it with other people is the best way to go. This is EB3, speaking the truth in love. If you like this content and you want more like it, like, subscribe, and drop a comment. Be blessed and be a blessing. I am out.